Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and ecstatic transformation, gathered his unconventional army. Satyrs with goat-like legs, graceful nymphs of the woods and streams, and his frenzied priestesses, the Bacchantes, all rallied to his call. Their destination, India, ruled by the powerful king Dionysus, their purpose, to spread the joyous worship of their god across the world. As Dionysus and his followers advanced, the Indian forces prepared for war. King Dionysus's warriors stood in disciplined ranks, their armor polished to a gleam, their weapons intricate and deadly. They were not alone. Lesser river deities and other powerful spirits of the land joined them, ready to defend their home from what they saw as a foreign invasion. Yet, even on the brink of battle, the air around Dionysus's camp was not one of fear, but of contagious celebration. This was not just a war, it was a sacred festival in motion. As night fell, Dionysus raised his thyrsus, a staff tipped with a pinnacone and wrapped in ivy. His voice, carried on the wind, echoed through the trees, reaching every one of his followers. "We march not with anger, but with faith and celebration," he declared. "Each step we take is a dance. Each strike we make is a tribute to life itself. Let them witness the unstoppable power of our joy, the magic of our transformation." At dawn, Dionysus's army began its march. It was a beautiful, organized chaos, a perfect reflection of their god's wild nature. Satyrs, nymphs, Bacchantes, and human followers moved as one, a procession that was both a parade and a declaration of war. Nature itself seemed to awaken in their presence. The forests grew denser, and fragrant flowering vines unfurled in their wake, carpeting the ground with color and life. Finally, the two armies came face to face. The tension was a palpable force, thick and heavy in the air. The Indian generals, Estrellas and Selenius, drew their resolve from a distant, powerful ally, the goddess Hera. Her seething hatred for Dionysus, her husband Zeus's illegitimate son, fueled her desire to see him utterly destroyed. The battle began with a cry of pure ecstasy. The Bacchantes led the charge, their own thyrsi glowing with divine light. Their battle cries were not of rage, but of rapturous joy, infused with the power of their god. The satyrs followed close behind, wielding makeshift spears and shields fashioned from tree trunks and hardened bark. The fight was swift and brutal. Empowered by divine madness, the attacks of the Bacchantes were unstoppable. Their ivy-wrapped staffs pierced armor and flesh as if they were made of steel. Some of the priestesses summoned serpents that coiled around their enemies, delivering venomous strikes. Others simply locked eyes with their opponents, their gaze paralyzing them with a hypnotic fear before they delivered the final blow. Watching the chaos unfold, General Esdras desperately tried to rally his men, urging them to resist the seductive, terrifying madness of Dionysus's followers. But despite their superior numbers and military discipline, the Indian forces were overwhelmed. They had never encountered an army like this, a force that fought not with tactics, but with pure, untamed passion. They broke ranks and retreated, falling back to regroup along the banks of a nearby river. Seeing his opportunity, Dionysus unleashed his own divine power. He raised his thyrsus high, and with a grand gesture, he transformed the river before them. The water swirled, changed color, and began to flow not with water, but with rich, fragrant wine and sweet, golden honey. The intoxicating aroma spread across the battlefield, a siren's call to the weary and frightened Indian soldiers. One by one, they dropped their weapons. They scrambled to the riverbank, cupping their hands and drinking deeply from the magical torrent. The effect was immediate. Some began to laugh uncontrollably, dancing in a daze, completely oblivious to the battle raging just moments before. Others simply fell into a deep, peaceful slumber, their weapons slipping from their grasp. Dionysus watched, a smile playing on his lips. "Behold," he proclaimed, his voice booming. "Behold the power of wine and celebration. Embrace joy, embrace transformation, embrace ecstasy. How can mere resistance stand against a divine truth?" The Indian soldiers who had been touched by Dionysus's gift simply wandered away from the battle, lost in a state of blissful confusion. His own army advanced relentlessly, their path now clear. With every step they took, the god's power was revealed not just in martial strength, but in his profound ability to transform everything and everyone around him. The remaining Indian forces sought refuge at the sacred river Hydaspes. Bolstered by Hera's divine will, the river itself rose up to defend them. It surged violently, its waves roaring like a waterfall, sweeping away anyone who dared to try and cross. But this was no obstacle for the followers of Dionysus. They navigated the raging currents on makeshift rafts, in small boats, and even on the backs of swimming horses, their faith making them fearless. They had breached the final defense and were now deep within the Indian king's lands. As the army journeyed further, they met with surprisingly little resistance. The fields and forests no longer echoed with the clash of steel, but with songs and laughter. Villagers, who were accustomed to the stern, disciplined rule of their king, watched in utter astonishment as this vibrant, chaotic procession passed by. It was a spectacle of life. Everywhere Dionysus went, the world seemed to flourish. Vines sprouted from the earth, heavy with ripened fruit. The air scented with wine, mingled with the fragrance of tropical flowers. The land itself felt alive, pulsing with the god's joyful energy. His nymphs danced barefoot, their heads crowned with ivy and wildflowers. The satyrs played their flutes and drums, the hypnotic rhythms stirring the hearts of even the most stoic onlookers. Slowly, irresistibly, the villagers were drawn into the celebration. The infectious joy was too powerful to resist. They joined the dance, they sang the songs, and they too became followers of the wine god. But high above on Mount Olympus, Hera watched with a frown of cold fury. To her, Dionysus was the embodiment of chaos, a stain upon the legacy of the gods, and a threat to the divine order she held so dear. Determined to crush him once and for all, she summoned the one god who reveled in destruction, Ares, the god of war. He appeared before her in a blaze of sparks and fire, his brutal spear in hand, his eyes burning with an insatiable hunger for conflict. "Mother," he growled, his voice like grinding stone, "what is your command?" Hera's lips curled into a cruel smile as she pointed down to the world below, to the vibrant, joyful procession making its way through India. "It is Dionysus," she hissed, "praised by fools as a god, but a usurper in truth. Go aid the armies of India. Show this upstart that no one, mortal or god, can defy the will of Olympus." Mounted on a magnificent chariot drawn by fire-breathing steeds, Ares descended to the mortal plane. His very presence was a war cry. He flew over the regrouped army of King Dionysus, his divine power washing over them like a wave, reigniting their courage and filling them with bloodlust. With the god of war himself now on their side, the Indian warriors reformed their lines, their banners held high. Even the rivers seemed to surge with renewed aggression, answering the call to battle. Meanwhile, Dionysus and his followers continued their peaceful, triumphant march, completely unaware that a divine confrontation of epic proportions was about to erupt. A clash that would pit the god of ecstatic joy against the god of brutal war. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the wild world of mythology, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories. See you next time.